Around the year 2000, portable music formats were in an interesting state, as was the whole music industry, I guess. So, like in the past, you had these old school formats like cassettes and CDs and even mini discs, which were based on the concept of recording music. So you just could record songs and music, and that was it. But around the year 2000, file sharing platforms became quite popular, things like Napster and so. So suddenly people had MP3 files on their computers, and they wanted to simply transfer these files onto their portable music players. And this was not really possible with these old school formats. And therefore, these mobile MP3 players quickly came onto the market. So this here is one of the first MP3 players that was on the market. And while it was nice being able to just copy your files over to it, it also was quite limited. So this one here had 32 megabytes of flash memory. And so if you were lucky, you could maybe fit an album onto this, but quite often you couldn't. So it was rather limited. And if you wanted to change the music that's on here, you would need to go back to your PC, erase the thing, and copy new files onto it. Main reason for the limitation was, of course, the price of flash memory, which was quite high. So yeah, after I got this player here, and I was quickly annoyed by the limitation of the flash memory size, and I quickly switched over to one of these here. And this is basically also a portable MP3 player, but it doesn't store its file on flash memory, but instead on CDs. And the interesting thing about this player is that it stores its music on 8 centimeter CDs. So if we compare here a regular CD with an 8 centimeter CD, you can see that it's much more compact and is actually quite a nice format to store your music files. And you could fit roughly 200 megabytes on one of these, and you could have several of these in your pocket, of course, and they were very cheap, and this was a really nice way back then to store your music. Of course, over time, all these, let's say, obscure formats and mediums got all eaten by flash. Like when the price of flash memory dropped, all these different types of storage just disappeared. I don't know, there's something about this format here that appeals to me. Like, it's probably also due to the movies, like the science fiction movies of that era. Like if you look at sci-fi movies from the 90s or early 2000s, they always had this tiny, shiny optical media formats containing the badass stuff on there. And this was always like the future, having mini optical media that stores your important stuff. So I don't know, there's a certain appeal, probably if you were around at that time, that comes with these optical media types. And yeah, now the thing is, this player here is really worn down. It's kind of a cheapo thingy, barely working anymore. Still works kind of, but yeah, flip is loose here. So yeah, it's not the best thing to listen to your music. And so one day I saw this player here and I thought to myself, like, what if I could just build one of these with today's technology that doesn't look that cheap, but also remove quite a bit of the other limitations of this players, like for example 2 megabyte of flash memory only. And yeah, so that's actually what I did. I built a complete DIY music player that plays these small CDs. And As you can see, it's quite a bit more compact compared to the original player here. And yeah, it offers you here, there's a small display to show you song titles, buttons for controlling the device. You have here USB-C for charging, and of course an audio jack. The thing which sets this apart from the original player is that this uses modern, quote, modern technology, because this drive in here is actually a Blu-ray drive. So you can fit, instead of 200 megabytes, you can fit 8 gigabytes per disk, which is quite a nice thing. Now, if your first thought is that this is completely pointless, then I guess you're new to this channel. But you would also be quite right. Like, this is absolutely pointless. Like, this thing even has an SD card, micro SD card slot for storing the operating system on this. And modern SD cards could store, I don't know, probably 50 to 100 times worth what's fitting on one of these Blu-ray discs. So it's indeed absolutely pointless, but it was a fun engineering challenge, and there's a tiny bit of an area where this actually makes sense, because this is still like listening to music in the old days. So in the old days, if you were listening to music, you always had something you put into the player. It always was spinning around, like CDs, cassettes, and LPs. Everything was spinning back then. So that's nice. And having something to physically touch is also quite nice. And the most important thing is, if you take this outside and, I don't know, you go to a nice place, listen to your music, then you are not interrupted by anything, not interrupted by mails, by messages, by reminders. It's just listening to the music, and everything else is, well, doesn't matter for that time when you listen to the music. And this is actually something that annoys me quite a bit when I listen to music on my smartphone, because constantly I'm interrupted by notifications, by emails, and also by myself just looking something up quickly on the phone, and it's just annoying. And with this, no chance. There's no wireless connectivity, nothing. It's just you press play and you listen to the music through your headphone jack. So that's quite nice. So how did I build this thing? It's rather simple. If we open the device up and let it spin down. First thing is, of course, the drive mechanics. Where do you get 8 centimeter disk drives these days? Actually, I think you never really were able to buy these, even when discs were a thing. Well, there is a special place where you actually can buy these drives, but they come in 2 parts. Like, first part is regular 12 centimeter drives. This is Bluray writer drive. So first thing you need to buy is this one. Second thing you need to buy is a Dremel. And afterwards you are left with a pile of scrap that you don't need. And you are just having then this small drive mechanics. Actually, I dremeled away almost everything. Like you see here is a cutting line, and I needed to recreate here some of the bearings of the drive mechanics just to make it as small as possible. The whole device is also rather thin, so it's just 10 millimeters thick here, and that was quite a challenge. I would say the main challenge, because yeah, this includes everything, like the motor, the drive mechanics, the PCB, the battery, everything is included in that. So yeah, that took most of the time getting this thing small. There's one other nice feature of this device, which is like today, if you wanted to write a Blu-ray disc, where would you do that? Like, I'm sure your PC doesn't have a writer anymore, but the nice thing is this here is actually a Blu-ray writer. So because I took this drive out of a 12 centimeter Blu-ray writer, I can simply write my Blu-ray discs using the player itself, which is quite fun. Okay, then let's open it up and see what makes it tick. Okay, as you can see, it's rather crowded in here. So we have, of course, the battery. There's many flat flex cables. Let me try to move the battery out of the way. This is a 2 PCB assembly. So we have here the PCB that came with the drive. So I just took that and placed it in here. But this surrounding PCB here, this is a custom PCB, and we can have a closer look at that because I have another spare PCB. So let's move you up a bit closer. And yeah, this is the main PCB of the player, and at the heart of it we have here an ARM SoC. This runs, in fact, Linux, and this controls the whole device. And the basic flow of data is with the microSD, which contains the operating system of the Linux SoC here. And we have micro USB for charging, and this is a SATA interface to the CD drive. This is a connector to the display, of course audio jack, and here we have all the buttons for controlling the device. And this small little button here, this senses whether the player is actually open or close, so that you can turn off the drive whenever the player is opened. Yeah, and the connection to the drive is also rather straightforward. So we have the Linux SoC here. This is connected via USB to a bridge chip. It's not populated on this PCB here, but yeah, this is a USB to SATA bridge, and this then is connected via SATA to the drive electronics, which sit in here in the player. And yeah, so the this bridge here is also a bit of a more complicated affair, because this bridge here needs its own firmware. So also not populated here, but on the other PCB is a flash chip, which contains special firmware for the bridge here. The way I got hold of this firmware is I unmounted the flash chip from the original enclosure and dumped the firmware and copied it over to another flash chip, so that I was able to have the same behavior here. And yeah, power management is also quite straightforward. So we have the battery that connects to here. This is then boosted from 4-point-something volts to 5 volts. And there's a 5-volt rail which is always on in this player. And as soon as the power button is pressed, this transistor here is switched on, which then powers on the rest of the system. So this then passes 5 volts to the bridge chip, and also to this triple DC to DC converter. So this here transforms the 5 volts to 3.3, 2.5 and 1.2 volts, which are then supplied to the ARM SoC. And there's also a 3 volt regulator inside here, which generates an analog voltage that's also needed on the SoC. The bridge chip itself also generates yet another voltage rail, converts the 5 volts down to 3.3, and there's also another DC to DC converter which converts 5 volts down to 1.2. So actually in total there are quite a few voltage rails that are on here. The USB is used to charge the battery via this charge controller. And in addition, the data pins of the USB are connected to a USB to serial adapter, which is sitting here, which then displays the serial console of the ARM SoC. This was a bit of an annoying factor. The USB port of the SoC is already connected to the bridge chip, so it cannot be used for debugging purposes or for copying files over to the SoC. All that's left over is basically the serial interface. So this is nice because if you plug this in, you instantly have the serial boot console available over this USB connector. But for copying files over to the SoC, it's not that nice. But luckily there's a PPP protocol, so this is actually used in case of development. I start a PPP server here on the SoC, which allows to tunnel Ethernet packets over the serial link here to the PC that connects to it. So afterwards this is started, I can simply ping this SoC over the serial port. I can SSH to it and do SCP file copies over the serial link. And so I configured the serial to be at roughly 1 megabit per second. And with that, the tunneled network over serial is actually very usable. And it's so nice to have SSH and SCP for development purposes. And so, yeah, that's a good thing to have. The operating system on the SD card is based on build-root. So I created and published, of course, a build-root external tree. And with that, you can, with just one single command, just compile everything that runs on the SoC, including Linux kernel, U-boot, and the application that controls everything here. And after the command is done, you have an SD card image that you can simply write onto the SD card. Yeah, and basically that's all that is here inside of this nice little player. And yeah, I really enjoy listening music by this, so it's rather nice. One final question is where to actually get these CDs, like, or more precisely, Blu-rays. Like with CDs, it's straightforward. You can simply buy these. But getting writable Blu-ray CDs in 8 centimeters is not easy. So there were some advertisements of these Blu-rays being available, but I think they never really got to the market, and probably these were killed off by flash memory getting cheaper as well. So unfortunately you cannot directly buy these, but luckily you can still kind of buy these, but they come again in 2 parts. Part 1, regular Blu-ray 12 centimeter CD. Part 2, again your trusty Dremel. So actually that's what I did. I cut a regular 12 centimeter CD down to 8 centimeter format. That's what I did 20 years ago already, like with this one here. So this was originally a 12 centimeter CD, and I cut it down to 8 centimeter. And yeah, this was a rewritable CD. That's why I did it, because then I could simply erase it and yeah, use it again. And this works surprisingly well. And yeah, it's still a bit, let's say, fiddly, because encoded on the CD here is that it's actually 12 centimeter CD, but luckily the drive electronics is smart enough. Like if you put one of these into your drive, the laser will first travel over the disk and then notice, wait, the disk stops here already, then I better trim down the capacity from 12 centimeters to 8 centimeters. And so this actually works without any issues. Yeah. So that was my little presentation of this nice MP3 player. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into all the details of this device. And as always, all the sources, 3D documents, schematics, source code are available. You find them in the description of the video below. All right, thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.